I am now Camille Paxman, so that's different than last time you met me, probably. Except for you know who I am. I knew him when he was a little kid. He's younger than me, but so he knows me as Camille Paxman anyway. So welcome. Glad to have you here. It's good to see you all. Today we're going to talk about a few different things. So we're going to start with Robert, who has, you guys all know Robert, right? I think everybody knows Robert. Robert's going to go through some housekeeping stuff he needs to go through. And then Melissa is on Zoom, but she's going to go through some things too. And we should be able to see her, but she can't see us because our camera is not working right. She's going to go through some things, and then we're going to do a discussion that I'll leave you here, and then Elizabeth, and I'll introduce her when we get to Elizabeth. So, Robert, you are up, right? You're going first, right? Okay. So here's your microphone.
So. Okay, so one thing I should mention, well, I guess the PowerPoint's being pulled up, okay, is that, remember I sent out an email that said there may be some of you that have trouble logging in. That should be resolved now, hopefully. If you have problems logging in, let me know and we'll figure out what's going on, because it had to do with there was a wrong date attached to the classes. So it allows you access based on when your classes are being held. And if the date's wrong, so there's that. Just let me know. I forgot to send out the email today that said it got fixed. I was getting ready for this. So, okay, so let's see. What we have noticed, and Brand Qualis, my boss, wants me to talk about, is we were looking at the trends of just the math pathways, and we saw some interesting trends. So next page. So many of you may have seen this pathway chart before. Anyone that is doing, like, if they're in the arts or the humanities, they do the 1030 route. Those are like social sciences, they do the 1040 route. If you're science, engineering, math, business, you go the standard 1050, 1060, 1210 route. So what we've noticed is for the past few years, it's been growing, but a couple of years ago, it started doing a different thing. All the classes except for 1050, either stagnated or they're starting to fall. And we just wanted to figure out with you guys why that's the case. So we didn't want to compare apples to oranges. So next slide. What we did is we actually compared how many schools have 1060 at them and how many students are actually going on to 1060. So these are the numbers of students that are actually taking for the past 5 years. And we actually went back further. We just did 5 years for this one. All of them started growing, and then you'll notice right around here, this one, 1030 is going down, 1040 kind of, 1060 has always been almost flat. And that's been for like 10 years. It's been flat. But you'll notice there, like I said, 1050 is growing, but 1060 is not growing with it. So we wanted to see if it's the case for those that don't offer 1060. So next slide. This is the trends if you don't have 1060. It's a little bit better than before. 1050 is not growing quite as much. 1040 is growing a little bit. But it seemed weird that schools with 1060, it's not growing, but 1050 is growing. So, and on the next slide, this is the general trend for all the CE classes, if you put them all together. So we just want to know what's going on here. What do you guys think is going on? What caused the trend?
I think at least for my students, 1050 scared them away
scared them away.
Like I had several students going into their senior year with a 4.0, and then they got an A- or a B+ or whatever, because it's 1050 and it's hard. And we all know
Yeah,
that.
1050 is hard.
And a lot of them were not willing to risk any more damage to their GPA to do 1060. And I tried to convince them, like, actually 1060 is probably easier than 1050.
I would agree.
But yeah,
The grades are higher.
But that was like, I really think that 1050 scares a lot of them away from 1060.
Yeah, because we did look at the grades. It's not in these slides or anything like that. We did look at the grades, and it looked like 75% of the people that take 1050 get an A or a B. So it's like, okay, we got all these students that, but it's hard. So, because I don't know, you guys know your students better than I do, so. Because we want all those that really want to do the sciences to keep going. I actually had a full week project once where I had to look at college majors, college degrees, to see if I could find one that stops at 1050. I found one throughout the United States. Obviously, I didn't do an extensive search, only had a week, but I found one. All those that require 1050 keep going. So hopefully, your students know that if this shouldn't be a stopping point, this, I don't know, I call it the start of learning how mathematical functions begin. Start learning the behavior.
I think another part of it could be you have students maybe take 1010 in the fall and then take 1050 in the spring of their senior year, and then they're done. So they're not going to
Yeah.
show up on this day.
They might, yeah. So, yeah, SLCC doesn't. I know Weber State does. But
And we do get some on campus.
yeah, there's some on campus.
I get a few every once in a while.
I know the reason.
So you think maybe students just got scared and they're like, or don't want to put in the work? Seems like the biggest thing.
I think, so I teach at Hillcrest, which is unique because it does have the IB program, which means they also have IB math class options. And I have noticed that a lot of my students are not science track bound, because those who are science and math track bound don't end up in concurrent enrollment. They end up in
The IB.
either IB or AP. So I don't know if my experience is different in that regard, but at least for me, in 1050, I saw very few students who were science or math bound, and a lot more students who were planning more of a humanities track and were just doing 1050 to check the box just in case.
They should check the 1030, 1040 box. They get the same QL credit.
Don't look
So-
at me. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're undecided, and so they like go with higher just in case they decide on something that needs it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never understood the reason. I'll take the higher class even though it's harder, just to check the box. But I think the grades are higher in 1040 and 1030 than they are in 1050. So if they're just checking the box, they should not be going 1050. So, hey, so you guys have given me food for thought, because I don't know, because I'm just figuring out why that's the case.
We thought about not kind of.
Hey, maybe I have you guys ask that question like a couple weeks into your class. Are you guys thinking of going on to 1060? That's another question. What type of field do you want to go in? Just general?
Just have a little survey.
Like
for them.
sciences or humanities, or not specific degrees? I know no one in high school knows that, but just general, because there are many studies that say people don't change their meta majors quite as often as they change their majors. So if you start in science, you normally stay in science.
That could be part of like a post-COVID trend of kind of depressing things where maybe we are getting the calculus students into the 1050s. They're just not being as ambitious as they might have been years past.
Oh, so they could have, if it wasn't for COVID, they would have gone straight to calculus.
Maybe, because there is a lot of gaps not necessarily math gaps, though that's part of it. It's work gaps that they aren't as diligent and don't want to be. So that means calculus is probably out of reach, but maybe 1050 is the next
Mhm.
thing.
Okay.
Robert,
There
can you
are the-
reiterate what's being said for those of us who can't
So,
hear?
so what was said was that some of the reasons, maybe because of the pandemic, that maybe those that would have gone to calculus are now falling back to 1050. And that could be the reason why we're seeing higher 1050 numbers. Or they get burnt out, or they originally think they want to be a science major and then they take 1050 and they decide not to be. Is the gist of what I got from everyone's comments. So,
I have a follow-up question for you, Robert. Is this a concern that we're seeing 1060 not trending alongside 1050? Or is it just like, is it problematic, do you see? Or is it just something you're like, oh, I wonder why this is happening?
no, it's always been a concern because it's, our concern is students are just being maybe funneled into 1050 as the default course versus what they may need for their QL credit. What's more appropriate for them based on what their meta major would be. We would expect, what we in the concurrent enrollment department would expect is hopefully everyone takes their correct pathway. They just don't default to 1050. Because in years past, that's what has been done.
I think a lot of it too is, as you mentioned earlier, students may know what general field they want to go into, but not specific. And you also mentioned 1050 is what I call gateway course, where the majors don't stop there, but it opens you up to many other options. So if a student isn't sure what they're going to go into, I think a lot of them, or not a lot, but some of them may just say, look, let's get to 1050, let's open that gate, and once I get to college and kind of determine where I'm going, then I'll know exactly which courses I need to take.
Yeah.
Which I can't say is an imprudent path. I think that's a wise path for me.
And we did, after 1010 go away, we saw an explosion of all the other classes rise really, really quickly, 1030, 1040. 1050 stayed about the same, 1060 never changed. So, because we actually, we looked at it before and after 1010 got changed. We actually also compared it to what Weber State was doing. We actually had less enrollments if we compared the two classes, compared 1010, 1030, 1050, because that's what's at Weber State. But most of them were 1010 enrollments. So they weren't getting their QL credit, but we were getting more QL credits. Plus we had 1040 and 1060. So it was, if you factor that in, we would have had more enrollments overall. So.
I'll build off the last comment and say that it's been a perennial problem at our high school of counselors not really understanding fully all the math pathways.
So maybe counselors not understanding?
It's hard to get into them and train them on that. I don't know whose responsibility it is other than ours. But.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to reiterate what you said briefly so those that are on Zoom can hear. Tammy said that maybe at the school, you guys help to educate the counselors, help educate the students, let them know what the options are. And that way they are better informed so they know what would be best for them. So, all right.
Is that something that like the concurrent enrollment office could maybe help us do?
Oh, we try and educate the counselors. They have counselor resources, and we're like, okay, we got these. We do have materials like, here are the pathways. Make sure that you talk to them about the pathways. And there's a counselor, I believe every year there's a counselor conference. And that's,
That is an effort on the side.
yeah, on our end, we're trying to get them to use the pathways to help students know where they need to go. Okay, so I'm going to bring what you guys told me back to Brandon Kowalski, the director of the CE department, because he really wanted me to talk to you guys about this. It's one of the things we want students to be where they're supposed to be. We don't want them to take extra courses they don't need. We want them to do what is best for them. So, okay, I guess I'm turning the time over to Melissa.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, today, for those that don't know me, I'm Melissa Quinn and I am the CE Math Liaison and in charge of the mentors who come and observe you and report back to me. Over the last couple of years, I've tried to increase the amount of support that you have been given, and hopefully it's been a good experience for you. If you need help and you have questions or concerns, you're welcome to email me. Last semester, I also went through the syllabus review. I've kind of been doing that over the last couple of years, but today I want to talk to you a little bit about the syllabus. And figured that this training, it would be a great way to get this information to you. As you know, many of you know, and those that are new, we provide a standard syllabus for you in our team sites. Now, this is meant to be helpful to you, but also to meet the requirements for the college to have very specific things in the syllabus. And so we ask that you use our standard syllabus. But when I went through your syllabus review last semester, I noticed that there are many things in the syllabus that have nothing to do with concurrent enrollment classes at the high school. And I can't see you there, but how many of you have read the syllabus and thought, some of this doesn't apply? Have you thought that? Like, those online can do a raise of hand or a thumbs up or something. Yeah. Like, well, this doesn't apply. Well, we want the syllabus to be a contract between you and the student so that they know exactly what's going on. And so I was thinking that many of you just might not realize that you can customize the syllabus so that it is more about what you're doing. And so we expect you to use the syllabus from the team site, but we also expect you to customize the syllabus for your individual situation. For example, I teach online, and so I've got to customize the syllabus that's given to me from the team sites. I've got to customize it for online. And we would expect you to do the same thing for concurrent enrollment. So if you got a message from me last semester, like, hey, you need to adjust this. Some of it was, I think maybe you just didn't realize you could customize some of the parts of it to fit your situation. I don't know if that's good to know, or if you didn't know that. I don't have much feedback from you here, but I just want to make sure you know that. So for example, like this is from the 1060 template syllabus, and it says stuff about taking tests and on campus or in the testing center. None of this applies to your students. Swap that information out and put what your tests are going to be like at your school instead. Does that make sense? You don't need to keep information about a testing center that the students will never use. Got it? Participation, there was a lot of like, it was unclear. We do have sections in all of our syllabus about participation or attendance because we want to alert faculty to have something there to let the students know what's expected of them, and just make sure you're clear about how you're handling this. So in some of the syllabus templates, it says something like, instructors may assign 5% of your course grade to participation. That is alerting you that that's the maximum amount of their grade that could go towards participation, but you should definitely fix that if you're not planning on having any points for participation, or if you are, you know, take out the word may and say your participation will be worth 5% of your grade, and this is how you earn the participation. So I want to see way more customizing in some of these sections than I saw. For the most part, it looked like everybody just kind of kept it there, especially for 1060 and 1050, and didn't customize. I didn't do 1030 or 1040, and Mitra is our team mentor for that, and I believe she's in the meeting. So if you have questions about 1030 or 1040, maybe after I'm done, she can speak to that. But for 1050 and 1060, I want to see more customizing of these individual sections that are specific to your class. You know, for example, it says regular attendance and Canvas participation. Like there's stuff like that in the syllabus, but I want you to make it your own and not just copy what we have, but just, yeah, customize it for what you're doing. Your classes are different. You guys are meeting more often or on different days. You might have different participation or attendance requirements. You might have ways that students make up assignments if they're gone. And so that should be clearly described in the syllabus. The students should know if they miss class, what they should do. And this, in the participation attendance section, is a great place for you to clearly state that. While I'm on that subject, I don't know if you guys know this, but we've been asked on the college campus to be flexible in helping students. And I know it's way different probably in the high school, but I also saw lots of rigid rules, and I totally respect that because you're dealing with a different maybe student demographic than we are on campus. But please allow, you know, if there's emergencies or sickness or things that come up, I would love to see some statements in your remember, these are also documents that parents can read to help their students, and so they need to be more applicable to your situation. And finally, let's talk about the grading scale. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask them at the end. But the grading scale for both 1050 and 1060 gives you some ranges, really for all the classes. You are given ranges and you can choose within those ranges. So there's a minimum expectation for each of those. And that's what I'm looking for as well when I'm reading your syllabus is, have you met those minimum requirements? Are you within the range for each of the categories? So for example, this is from 1060. 1050 has something very similar. But for midterm, so this was taken directly from the syllabus, and it says the midterm exam is worth 45%, final exam is 25%, and the rest of it is like an other category, and that could be quizzes, homework, projects, and participation. Now, there should be a breakdown further of how much each of those other assignments are broken down. I shouldn't see 30% for all of those lumped in. A student should know exactly how much of their grade is going towards quizzes, how much is going towards homework, how much is going towards projects. They should know that. And when you just put 30% for all of these other things, there's no way of knowing how much quizzes are. And so 5% is required to go towards the project. And so what I'd like to see is, instead of just lumping it all in and saying 30% is going towards all these other things, itemize those. So I should say quizzes, 10%, if that's what you decide. Homework, 10% of the total grade. So that it's broken down instead of this just too big of a category to even know if I miss this quiz, what's it gonna do to my grade? Do you see what I'm saying? I don't see any of you. I'm just assuming you know what I'm saying here. So although the standard template syllabus gives you this just wide range, you are expected to break that down further for your students so that they know how much of their grade each item is worth. All right, check for consistency. Just make sure that if you're saying something at the beginning that you don't contradict yourself at the end. Like I know in one of the standard syllabus, it said there may be extra credit, and then maybe at the end you say there's no extra credit, don't even ask. And that's kind of confusing. Just go ahead and delete the extra credit section or state it there instead of saying there might be a possibility of extra credit. The student reads that, they get excited, they may not see it at the end that you're saying no extra credit at all. So let's just be consistent and change the items within the syllabus to fit your situation. How are we doing? Any questions?
Doesn't look like it. I think we're good.
All right. So for the 1050 syllabus, just one sec. Sorry, I got kicked out of the library room. So. The 1050 syllabus, I think, okay, so there are certain things that you can't take out. And I was going to show you that on your screen. Like you have to keep, we're required to have, based on stuff from the college and from the math department, which is why we kind of started doing these standardized syllabus. Just to give you an idea of what you can and you can't take out. Can you see my screen yet? No, okay.
No.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, this is this 1050 standard syllabus, just so I know many of you are teaching that. It's the same for 1040, 1050, or 1030. You should keep prerequisite information, course description information, learning objectives or learning outcomes. Most of like until you get to the grading and like the participation and that kind of stuff that is dealing with their grade, you should keep the rest of it. But if it has to do with testing, you don't need to, you can modify that, but make sure that you have your contact information on there. And the other thing that is required, and I know this is more difficult in high school, is to have the exam dates. Let the students know when to expect exams. That also helps families as they're making plans and stuff like that. And then, you know, what to do if they miss an exam should be in your syllabus, how to make that up. And so, yeah, those were the main things I wanted to cover. You know, keep everything about the final exam and the final exam rule. Keep everything about the e-portfolio, those things. But the grade weights, talking about assignments, that's all customizable based on the parameters for the percentages. But you guys can, you know, make that be your own in those sections. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa.
So I am also going to introduce the next little bit. You can definitely just give ranges or at least let the students know. The question in the chat is, do we really have to let students know when their exams are? It's obviously very different in high school. And I know you guys sometimes have more flexibility than we do in your timeline on your schedule, but it is best practice to let your students know when their exams will be. The standards should stay in at the end. Yeah, all of those, that's a requirement. So at the end of the syllabus, it has like all the standards, I believe. And you know what, even though the students are taking this class through the high school, they can still get support through the college. And so I would leave all the information about the resources on campus and resources there. Just take out the stuff like about where they're going to take their test and stuff like that, because they're not going to be taking it on campus. But I would keep all the campus resources and everything that are in the syllabus. Hopefully you now feel like you have a little bit more autonomy to make your syllabus more your own while still meeting the requirements we have for you. And hopefully this has been good to clarify that so that you know what you can and can't do there. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. All right. I'm going to introduce the next part. We're excited to be able to talk about problem solving. And when we were thinking about what we wanted to go over, this kept coming to mind because I don't know if you have this happen, but on your screen here, I have a screenshot of a quiz that, now this is just one particular student, but I've seen this 100 times, all the time, on quizzes, on tests. And what do you notice about these two problems? Can you tell? They're blank, but what kind of problems are they? Are you able to see them okay?
Too small. Much better.
There you go, can you see that? They're application problems, aren't they? Yes, thank you, everyone. Application problems, they leave them blank, you know, and this is from a Math 1010 class. So students have had previous math classes probably, obviously, where they've been working on application problems, but still I see like some students are willing to engage in the problem solving. And when I say problem solving, I'm talking about word problems or application problems. And some students, they've got some pretty big mental blocks towards them. Have you seen that as well? Have you seen the mental blocks? Or just not knowing how to do it, not knowing how to move forward, and just continually just leaving them blank or just getting them wrong all the time. You know, we've got about 15 people on the online chat. I should see my chat messaging flooded with messages. So if you're participating online, let's get some participation. All right, you guys. But yeah, this is why we're going to be talking about this today, and I'm excited to have one of our full-time faculty members who has kind of spearheaded the effort to help with problem solving in our Math 920 class, and her name is Elizabeth Nearing. And those of you who are online won't be able to see her, but she's amazing, and she's going to lead a discussion there in the classroom. And those online, we're going to move to a breakout room, and we're going to have the same discussion, and then we'll hear a little bit more about problem solving and ways that you can teach students how to move through solving these application problems.
Okay, so I handed out a sheet of paper. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to talk about this with your table. So go ahead and read this, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, not more than that. Go ahead and talk about these with your table just really quick, and then we'll go from there. And these guys online, they're going to talk about these discussion questions in a breakout room. So we'll say like 5 minutes, come back. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
And then everybody's reading, so I'll give you guys a minute. People online don't have it.
Did you email it to me?
No, I didn't know. How could they have a link to it? So what I want to do now is I want to put you all into groups and give you it's still Math 920, but give you a polio problem that we give them to work on in groups in our classes. So this will be good references, another thing you can do in your class, but modify it. It's a big project. I give them the whole class period to work on this in groups. So if you would I'll help hand them out to you.
Finish this first, or you want me to?
Oh, they're just supposed to look at that.
Oh, just
Yeah, that's just a
this is the
visual.
one I guess that you're gonna
This is the one I want everybody to get into groups and work on together. So we probably can get this to the people on Zoom. So I was hoping for groups of 4 or 5. Get lots of minds together. Yay! Getting bigger groups. You can do it. My developmental students can do it. So you can do it. And just so everybody knows, this is a non-calculator section of the course.